Okay. Good morning, everyone. So, sorry. Let's start. So, welcome to CCAMP session. So it seems that this time we have more people than before, even though we have some conflicts with, that conf. Hi, Lu. Nice to see you. Okay, anyway. So looking at this picture, we can see that, IETF has been in Prague for 5 times since, 2007. So it seems that Prague is a good place, because of cheap hotel and cheap food. Really? Beer. Plus beer. Yeah. Okay. Let's start from the loadware. I think many people are familiar with loadware policy information. So it says, by participating in IETF meeting, you agree to follow IETF policies. And if you are aware that any IETF contribution is covered by any patents, you must disclose this fact. And also, as a participation to any IETF activities, you acknowledge that written, audio, video, and photographic recording of the meetings may be made public. Okay, please take a look at this kind of policies. So this time we have only one session with 2 hours. Our secretary is late. Welcome to Oscar. Okay. So this is our agenda. So this time, we noticed that the last slot was cancelled because Vitalo asked that this draft could be presented in this working group. So this time, actually, I think the agenda is not quite busy. So we should have enough time for deep discussion. So as usual, please speak in front of the mic, and please state your name before speaking. So the chairs monitor the meeting echo and to see if there are any comments from the remote participants. And the meeting takers, I think Oscar is here, and also I ask my colleague Hamiana to take some minutes through the ESPAD. But if anyone could take some minutes through the ESPAD, that will be appreciated. Thank you. So IPR, IPR is really quite important. So usually, as usual, before moving to next step in the working group process, for example, before an individual draft becomes a working group document, or a working group document goes to last call, the chairs will send out IPR polling, and it requires all the authors and the contributors of one draft to answer the IPR polling as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will delay your draft to move forward. So for the mailing list, so we always encourage people to use the mailing list as much as possible. Any technical stuff, for example, open issues, introduce new drafts, or some potential new topics in the working group could be discussed on the list. And also, working group consensus is determined on the list rather than, at the face-to-face meeting. Even though sometimes we can get some consensus in this meeting room, but we still need to bring it to the, list for more discussion to build up, wider consensus from the working group, level point of view.
Okay, let's go through an update on the status of the working group. We don't have any new RFC since last meeting, but we have a lot of drafts in the very last stages. The microwave Young model, which is our first deliverable on Young, It's now in the editor queue. So thanks a lot for the hard work on this document. Two documents are in the ISG processing. The alarm module, which is another young model for generic alarms. This was heavily discussed on the mailing list. This is another really good document delivered by the group. And the RSVPT bandwidth availability, which is now ready to be moved forward. Since last meeting, we adopted two new documents beyond the 100 gigabit OTN. The scope of the document has been turned into an applicability document and was adopted by the working group. The young model for microwave that we delivered and it's now in the working group is the device configuration model. We are also working now on the network model, which has been adopted recently, last month. We have a number of working group items on agenda. We will have them presented, and we allocated some time for discussion. A short update on the documents not in the agenda. We have the WDM interface management and control framework. This document has been, let me say, we are discussing with Deborah how to proceed on this document. Maybe it will be published, maybe not. There is some work still to be done on this document. Next one, OTN, topology and the tunnel model. They have been aligned with the T generic model and now compliant with RFC 8408. We don't have any update on the WSON ID and code and information. I don't know if some of the authors would like to tell us something about the status of the drafts, if any author is here. Also, like
Galimberti speaking. I think this two document has been refreshed in terms not to expire, but again, according to the authors, they are ready to go to the last call.
Okay.
There is no further activity on them, and so
we will do the review to prepare them for last call. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. As we said, these are either in the last call or in the editor queue. Liaisons and communication. We received a liaison for the ITUT study group 15 on it's the classical communication on the progresses on OTN standardization work plan. We are working on a reply right in these days. It will be a joint reply from CCAMP, TIS, PCE, MPLS, and PULSE. And we sent a liaison to the study group 15 regarding the alarm module, so to make sure that everyone is aligned and updated on the work that we are doing. Wonderful. Is there any question before we start? Agenda bashing or any item you wanted to bring up?
It's actually a question about the OIF. Isn't there kind of a liaison going with OIF for foreign GCR and those kinds of things?
There is, but I don't remember any liaison between since the last meeting. Italo.
Thank you. I'm Italo Busi. I'm doing some update on the work we've done with the transport and BI design team. So a quick reminder of the goal of our design team is to understand and to describe how the IETF YAM models can be applied to transport networks at the MBI of the controller. So what do? We have developed an applicability statement, and we have then done some major changes in the last few months. We have added the domain definition that was discussed on the mailing list, and we have made more description of what happens when you have access links of different types, especially the multifunction access links. So access links which can be configured on different technologies like STM, 10G Ethernet, or O2 depending on the service. And we have completed the description of how to set up Ethernet services and the topology. And we have added some consideration about protection and restoration, and have done an editorial cleanup to improve readability of the document. And the latest version that has been uploaded is the 05 one. So what the draft describes different types of services which can enter the network on different interfaces. The interface can be of different types, so we can have a multifunction access link which supports 3 types, 10G Ethernet, STMN, or O2, and then you can set up Ethernet or STMN, liaison line, or even ODU transit traffic. You can have only Ethernet interfaces, or you can have also only STMN or interfaces which support everything but Ethernet. So we made examples of how the different capabilities of the access links can be reported, and then what we describe is how you can set up a multi-domain or a single domain OTN tunnel to support connectivity among these different interfaces. And the reference architecture is that the network is divided into 3 domains, and what we focus is how the YAM models are used on the 3 MPIs between the multi-domain service coordinator and the different PNCs. And so we have cleaned up a bit what is the topology that is exposed by the different controllers. So we assume that PNC 1 and 2 explores a black topology, so the whole domain is abstracted as a single node, and we have the OTN topology for the OTN links and the Ethernet topologies for the Ethernet access links, and the multifunction access link will appear on both topologies because they are the same link, and the PNC3 is instead exposing a white topology. And then when you need to set up an OTN tunnel end-to-end. The multi-domain service coordinator has to split the request into 3 segment tunnels to the 3 PNCs from its own ingress and egress points. What is important to understand is that the tunnel, with the only exception of when the tunnel is starting from outside, so you have a tunnel segment, the tunnel is starting from the node. And so when you have to carry services like Ethernet service or STM liaison line, what you need is some additional information that tells you from which interface the traffic is steered into the tunnel, and in case of multifunction access link, how to configure that interface. If it is an STM64, if it is a multifunction access link like this one, you have to say, oh, I am receiving STM64 traffic, and I want this STM64 traffic to go into the tunnel. And in this document, we use a client model to describe that, and we show how that can be done in this scenario for STM64 and also for Ethernet. When you have Ethernet, in addition to the fact that the traffic is Ethernet, you have also to configure the classification. So if you have a port-based service like EPL, you say my classification is port-based. If it is a VLAN-based, you have to classify based on VLAN, and you have to configure the VLAN. So basically, we are completing all the use case scenarios that we were addressing, and we have also some JSON code for describing how the YAM model can be instantiated. This is this JSON code is validated, so we have an automatic tool that was developed by the contributors. Gianmarco from Ericsson, actually, that allows you to take the JSON code that we develop. Fold and unfold based on the NetMod working group draft, and then you can take this one, take some comments out, and validate that it's actually meeting the YANG schema. So there are no mistakes, and all the rules for YANG validation are met. And we provide those examples into an appendix of the document. So about the next steps, okay, we have a few open issues. We are trying to clean up, and we will have a face-to-face meeting at during Wednesday, between 1:30 to 15 in Carlin 1 and 2. The plan is to look at all on the list of use case of the points, what is needed to be addressed before working group last call and what is not really blocking. And the idea is to have another revision of the document and to have it something ready for working group last call by June timeframe, more or less. Thank you.
Can you quickly go through the announcements that you are foreseeing?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's what we miss is a few editorials. There are some references, and we have some. The major one is describing the protection, how to configure protection, and I don't remind any other big issue by memory.
Checking online.
Yeah.
If you don't remember them, they are not important. Okay.
Other things which are maybe nice to have, but they are not major. And
as we said last time, we could go on forever. But
exactly. Yes.
It's time to say, okay,
and
it's done.
And people think something is useful can be added in a future document. It doesn't. I don't see any problem to do another document if people want it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Let me try. No. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Young. I have a full presentation set this morning for this slot. Quite a lot, but it's tedious, actually, not much update. First of all, I start with W-Sun Yang, a topology model on behalf of many co-authors and collaborators. Yeah, I think Tom Patch, I don't know whether he's here or not, but he has been more than active than working group chairs or any other person.
He's our young compiler.
He's actually a pre-Young expert, so that Young doctor review can be easier. I think we added security section, which is kind of nomenclature, which module could be vulnerable and so on. So we identify some, and I think major change is a grid type. I think it was initiated by Gabriele that flex grid and M and N value should be integer, so that impacts W-Sun as well. So we change channel frequency unit from frequency terahertz to integer 16. Likewise, later flex grid as well. So that incur a lot of changes on label groupings, not just unit, but label steps and everything. But I think it was a painful process, but I think it aligned with ITUT definition, and a lot of editorial improvements and Young models and reference. I believe this morning I updated version 20 to reflect Tom Patch's additional comment, afterwards. So I think I fixed it. So next step, I think this is quite stable and ready for Young doctors review and working group last call. As T topology is stable, so this one is stable. We share the fate sharing, and okay.
I mean, I agree with you. The T topology is well. Actually, the T topology was brought back to the working group, right? So probably it would be better to wait for it to go at least to the ISTU. Please go.
I agree. It's a very mature draft, but still there are, let's say, some details. So, for example, the FEC. I mean, there's the operational mode inside. And
we actually, operation model is a layer 0 types.
Right.
So we just import it. So yeah,
and
I
it
think,
also, yeah, and it also has an addition effect type, which is supposed to be in the operational mode. So,
that's actually, you're right. Actually, this draft contains IETF layer 0 types in this document.
yes.
But I think Dieter, it's aging or time difference. I don't know. Hopefully, time difference, not aging. Yeah, I think Dieter suggested maybe we should separate layer 0 type module as a separate document, because what happened to topology was because of T type was part of T tunnel model, and it became misref in the RFC process. So I don't know. We need to kind of decide whether we separate it or not. But I think young doctors kind of said just type module in one draft doesn't have any context, so it's very difficult for them to evaluate what that is all about. So yeah, I think maybe you have a comment. Okay. Okay. I thought you were in Myanmar, no? Oh, okay, okay.
This is Dieter. I mean, you can actually put references into that draft that contains the layer 0 types, for example, to the other Yang models that make use of the layer 0 types, for example.
Could you say that again? I didn't.
You could actually add references to the document, to the draft that contains the layer 0 types to the Yang models that define then, for example, the interface Yang model or the topology Yang model or whatever.
But you're saying still separate type and then just reference it so that people know the context.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, my major thing was since there's some duplication of what was supposed to be in the layer 0 type and what is in addition in the model, we need to clean up that one as well. But again, I think it's a detail, but something to be done.
Yeah, I think that's fair of comment. Yeah, and also T topology is kind of working group last call stage, so we have to wait anyhow. So during the time we can fix that. Hopefully this week. Tomorrow we have 2 sessions. Okay.
Dieter again. I think well, there are now several drafts on our agenda of the CCAMP session that actually address a similar or very related area, technical area. I think probably at the end of the session we will have some time to discuss how to move forward, because I think this is these drafts are also in this area, right? And yeah, I think there are some more drafts like the layer 0 optical impairment topology draft and the drafts from Gabriele, for example, and we have to figure out how we move forward. I'm probably will have some time at the end of the session to discuss that.
Thank you. But in any case, we needed to take decisions on the list because not all the working group is here today.
Lou Berger, just briefly on what's going on with TE topology. It is come back to the working group. We're doing another last call. We expect the last call to finish on Friday and to move forward. So that shouldn't block you. But in terms of the splitting out the documents, the reason we did that split was because the types was blocking. It was embedded in another document that wasn't quite ready, and it was blocking progress of TE topology in other documents. We split it out. So it was only because it made sense. So if it makes sense from a timing perspective, do it.
If I correctly remember, the types is now in in the editor queue.
Yeah, I don't remember where it is. It's with the IASG, but it was because it was embedded in another model that still isn't quite ready, and it was holding up TE types, TE topology. Sorry, but TE topology should be out soon.
Okay.
And if it makes sense to break apart, sure. If it doesn't, if everything's ready to go, don't want. It's up to you whether you break it into a separate document, but you don't need to.
Well, actually, why not doing the same things that were done in TIS? We trust you.
Sure, that works. Learn from our mistakes.
Okay, I have one question. So if the working group agreed to have a separate document to define layer 0 types, so which working group to define? From my understanding, layer 0 type is more like a kind of technology specific, not the generic. So maybe should be defined in the CCAMP working group, right, Lou?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is already CCAM draft.
Okay.
Lou said yes.
The only issue is whether to have a dedicated document or not.
Yeah, I think there's a trade-off, I think. If T-type layer 0 is mature and complete, then we can move it first. But if not, then we have some backfire issue later on. We have to have another RFC or Bs or something if we miss something. So
No,
it could hold
yeah,
back,
but
other progress.
Splitting the document into two pieces doesn't mean that one goes ahead right now. It means we can split the document, but then make sure that they are in or progressing them.
Yes and no, but if WSUN say this one move first and T-types has not been moved, then it's a misref. So it's going to hang on in the RFC queue, just like T topology. So let's not make a decision, but we'll find out among the authors this week, and then we'll recommend. Okay, but currently layer 0 T-types is part of WSUN topology model, the draft. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's not make a decision yet, because I think Italo may have some.
No, I just
Yeah.
say that the layer 0 type, we are putting a lot of groupings which are also impacting other models. So if we keep, we have to be careful, otherwise we go that until we finish all the layer 0 drafts, we cannot publish any single RFC. That's the risk if everybody depends on layer 0 types. Unless the other option may be that we go step by step. We can have a version 1 of layer 0 types with only WSUN groupings, a version 2 with that just adds new groupings. That's maybe a more pragmatic approach. Because we can still publish revision of existing models. So that's maybe the way to go. So we can, when we want to go WSUN, we can take all the groupings that are stable and go RSC, and then have a new revision with the new groupings. That's what I was thinking of.
But this makes me think that splitting the two things is even better.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah. Okay.
Because I mean, if the T types, the L0 types are embedded into another draft, and then you need to update them, it's totally a mess.
So you want to have a different document? Okay.
It's simpler to update it later.
Okay.
Luberger again, I completely agree. Given Italo said the key thing is that the T types is now being used by multiple modules. Models. And given that, it really does make sense to break it apart. So I think you're right.
Okay.
Hi, Oscar. So right now, also we have this topology, etc. model of WSUN, and we also have the Flexi one. So the layer 0 types you are proposing will be valid for both, for the Flexi and layer 0?
Yes, actually, we added WSUN and Flex grid grouping in layer 0 types altogether.
Okay.
So it both document import same layer 0 types.
So then they will both.
And then impairment also import in the same way. So, yep.
Okay.
Okay. So this one is a tunnel model. The recent changes of T-tunnel, they change some parameters like a reverse path to path reverse or something, and there are many nitty-gritty changes, and so we had to align with that to get those young complaints and young errors. So we clear all that, and it's a lot of editorial improvements for young model and references and so on. But T-tunnel model, I haven't kept track recently where they are. For last month, I wasn't able to join the weekly call. Hopefully they are stable, but I don't know yet. So this tunnel model for WSUN may not be at the same pace as topology model. This might be a little bit behind, depending on the maturity of T-tunnel model. I don't know. Iwa, do you know Igor is here, actually. What's going on? T-tunnel model?
Hi, this is Igor. So Derek will provide update tomorrow, but basically it's very stable. We're not doing much. There are no much changes, just a few. So we expect last call pretty soon.
Okay, that's good news. Okay.
So you mean there's no open issues for the T tunnel right now? Okay, that's good.
Okay, that's good. Then this one could follow as soon as T tunnel model is stabilized and working with last call. But in the meantime, I think, can you ask young doctors review for at least WSUN topology to save some time? I don't know, how does it work? Is it part of working group last call or pre-working group last call?
It's something that probably we can add a note. We might split this document into two, but
I see.
I don't know if this is going to impact the young doctor review and how the split of the document into two pieces. So
I don't think they care, but they only look at young modules, right?
Probably we can.
Okay.
Just adding a note that we might split the two pieces, but it's just an editorial thing.
Okay. Right. Next one is Flex Grid. And Jorge, actually, he updated this morning or last night for Flex Grid topology model. I think this pace of a Flexi Grid topology and WSUN grid on the same way, on the same level. I think we made a mistake that I think he stick to Flexi Grid. We thought we changed Flex Grid from previous version, but he still used Flexi Grid. And I checked RFC that Oscar produced. They use Flexi Grid, so I think we better stick to Flexi Grid. So that created some young validation error. So it's just a matter of fixing I or adding I to T, whatever. So we'll clean up even, this week. So there's no young issue at all. And again, Flex M and Flex N, we make it to integer 16 to align with the ITUT and the RFC. Again, this is very stable and it's ready to go. Likewise, WSUN model. And FlexGrid media channel, same thing. We cleaned up all the latest changes due to T-tunnel. And if I change FlexGrid to FlexiGrid, everything will be solved, this week. And it's also good progress with T-tunnel model.
Probably we could make a sort of bundle of the various topology drafts and start with the young doctor review of both of them.
Yes, that might be good.
It's also easier to have a single person appointed to review the both things.
Yes, it's very similar, almost identical. Yeah, okay.
We needed to sort out how to do it procedure-wise, but I think that it saves us some time. Physical.
This Igor. So one thing that I would want to point out and bring your attention is that we recently brought to our attention that we missed quite a big piece in T-tunnels, which is errors and error handling and reporting to the client. For example, provisioning errors, path computation errors, stuff like that. So maybe you should take a look at that and also add like optical layer specific errors that you would want to notify client about. This is very important in investigation of various problems.
So are you saying the T-tunnel model is not really stable?
No, it is stable, but we just added like a container that can describe the error that happened during establishment.
But is that already there? You already added it, or you are in the process of doing that?
We added, and Tarek will report tomorrow on
Okay,
that.
so in the new update,
Yes.
we'll see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
It's you again.
Okay, this is a layer 1 connectivity service model. We started a while ago based on MEF 63 service definition. We basically used their spec to come up with IETF model, and also I personally addressed this to MEF so that they would use the same young model between IETF and MEF. Yeah, here actually we also separated out two modules, layer 1 service types from the main module. And we have GitHub, ACT, and CMI. This is part of CMI. The CMI? Yeah, okay. CNC and yeah. It sounds like I never heard of CMI before. It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign, but anyhow. Okay, I hope that's the case. Yeah. Yeah, we had an initial young doctor's review. Rob, I don't know last name. Not Colton. He's not Colton. Rob, some ton. And his changes are already incorporated, and I think he approved that. But that was pre-working group last call young review. And substantial editing, thanks to Tom Pitch, make it ready for working group last call. And layer 1 service types are aligned with OTN types for terminologies. And references update, and special thanks to Tom Patch. So I think this one is indeed ready for working with last call.
Fatai, the question.
So it seems that this draft does not reference to some, ongoing working group document, right? So there's no dependency between some other working
that's
group
right.
documents. Yeah. Okay.
Comment from Harvard. Actually, regarding the layer 1 service types module listed in this draft, it also reminds us to align with OTN types again. So similarly as a layer 0, I believe there is the same issue should be take care in layer 1. So I'd like to confirm with the authors here, do we have the motivation to extract it as a separate one for both layer 1 service type and the layer 1 OTN types, or we still keep it as is?
As far as I know, the types not referred by anyone else. But, to be safe, I don't know. I don't want to produce too many drafts because it's a pain.
You're right. You're right. You said the two right things. One is to be safe, but on the other side, too many drafts. So, well, I was wondering if we could put all the types together, do something like a layer 0, layer 1 types. So that saves
I don't think that solves the problem. All the types into one draft? No.
No, we are not proposing all the types into one draft, but layer 1 specific types from this draft and from the OTN tunnel draft. Actually, currently they are semantically aligned with each other, but they are just the two different drafts. Two different modules.
But they are not the same. No. OTN types and layer 1 service types are not identical. There might be some term, only terminology, same, but not the same attribute.
So we can either have a superset and imported by both draft, or we just keep separate service types and OTN types and then separate again.
Yeah, I think we can take a look. Yeah.
I mean,
no rush.
Even if the two types have nothing in common, putting them together would in any case save us one document. And if someone is interested in the types, can have a look at them all in the same place. So I don't see any particular drawbacks in putting them together.
Maybe let's have layer 1 service and OTN, which is layer 1. Maybe we might be able to merge. I don't know how much groupings are shared, but we can still merge if that's the case. Because if OTN has to separate anyhow, from the main module, then maybe this one might be making sense because this is layer 1 service and the OTN is layer 1. Only layer 1 we know of today, right?
Yeah, so regarding this document, I believe this the layer 1 service is basically achieved by the layer 1 OTN networks. So that makes sense for share the same types in network and in the service.
Okay, we'll evaluate that. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Michael Schorf and like to raise an entirely academic question. So I've checked the document regarding the performance metrics. Do we need a more formal definition of the performance metrics? For example, with references to IPPM or something like that?
Yes, actually, this I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just strictly used the spec MEF defined. So I didn't reinvent additional performance metric, but if we deviate from MEF, I think we have liberty to define further performance metric. Actually, there's one China Unicom guy offline. He's asked more to be added. So do you have some?
No,
not IPPM per se, because that's more IP centric, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just, my thinking is at least you have to reference it. So where the metric is that.
I think the reference actually is specified in MEF 63. So it's just a matter of put the reference.
Yeah, then it's maybe just that. But as I said, I mean, if there's an IPPM definition of the metric, you probably have to be clear that you're not referencing to an IETF.
Correct.
Metric.
Okay. Yeah, you're talking about this referencing. Yeah, we can do that. No problem.
Okay. So I like layer 0 types and layer 1 types separate. I don't think that basically it makes much sense to combine them. For example, there could be modules that are only interested in layer 1 but not layer 0, right? And other ways around. Okay, so you wouldn't want to hold such modules just because, say, some types which are of no concern to the model have issues, right? So if you combine layer 0 and layer 1, why not Ethernet types also add to that?
So we're not saying we combine layer 0 and layer 1. We are saying layer 1 service type and OTN service type together. Still layer 1. We still have layer 0 separate.
No, whatever. So I think a good rule is to have it like a per layer, types.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's what we are trying to do. Is it jet lag or aging, Igor?
Question for Igor, when you mentioned that in the same layer altogether, so even if in the same layer you may have different technologies, you want them together. Here the situation seems to be easy. Now with L1 we only have OTN, but
no. I mean that if you have, for example, FlexiGrid types, okay, it could be a separate document, but this is the same actual logic, right? So, but you don't want to have layer 0 and layer 1 in one document, right?
Yeah, we agree that.
Just one clarification, Yang, about the document is reporting a Yang model for that is coming from definition of the attribute that is MEF 63. I remember that it is stated that it is aligning with the MEF 63. There has been some check or requested check in MEF to confirm that there is alignment. How is the status of this path? Because I remember that there was an intention to ask MEF to say yes, it is aligned, or just a question.
I don't know actually. I think it's your call, but I don't think we reference it, but we didn't mean to have this exact same, because two different SDOs have different perspective. But if our goal is to have exactly the same Yang model, then I think that might be needed. But I don't know, whether that's a good idea or bad idea. But so far it's aligned as far as I know. But we can have verification from. You can ask them or they ask you. I don't know. Who start first?
Whoever talks first. The point was there was a definition of a service for layer 1 connectivity service, but
Right.
there was no young model in MEF. So the intention of this draft is to
Right.
fit what is the lack on the MEF, so to have a young model for that. So
They have
we
a
align-
UML model
yes,
written
there
by
is
your
a UML
colleague.
model.
So maybe that's easiest way to check.
Sergio, you don't have the jet lag excuse.
No, but I know that, but it's UML model.
Yeah, they have UML, but UML is same as grouping. They have exactly same container. I don't know what they call it, but they have container for layer 1 attribute. I think we have a grouping, so that should be identical, I think.
Dieter Nokia. I think you are attending MEF meetings, right? And
I do.
did you present that Yang model at the MEF?
I
at
did.
one of the recent MEF meetings. So was there some feedback, some sort of
Yes.
reaction?
Let me give you some
comments.
Yeah,
or-
some issue on MEF. MEF, there are not many people who have expertise on Yang model. They are UML people, and they are also API people, JSON API. So they're, for certain interface, they want to skip Yang model completely. So I fight back actually saying that Yang has to be there. Otherwise, it's very difficult to UML to API because it's mismatch. And then, we know Alto working group. Alto is kind of the approach. Without data model, they are writing a JSON schema. You can do it if it's simple, but if you have a very complex system, it's
Yeah, but
very...
I don't think that they have to really look at the Yang files. I think if you present the tree view and if you check the attributes that you have defined and explain the service attributes to MEF, people probably they understand and they can compare it with their specifications, right?
Yeah, there are some Cisco people who understand Yang model in MEF. They're minority, like me. And it's different language, UML versus Yang. It's almost like religious battle.
I understand
It's
that,
difficult,
but also in the UML diagrams, you have the objects and you have the or the classes and you have the attributes. I mean, it should be fairly easy to compare the two, right? Or
It's
more or less.
supposed to be.
Supposed to.
Yes, but somebody has to do right, exactly. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just asked the same question down to Daniel to double check if IETF has a liaison communication with MEF. If we have, and then we can, send the liaison to MEF to double check if they are consistent between each other. Even though we know in MEF they are just defined parameters for this kind of service, right? But here we defined Yang models. They are different things, but we have to check between each other if they are consistent anyway from the parameter information model perspective. You mean we got the liaison, but we...
But I think, MEF is a kind of organization where you have to point to LSO committee, Lifecycle Orchestration Committee. They are the one who defines UMLs and all this model. So we have to point that specific committee, otherwise it goes to higher level.
Okay, if you check the liaison queue, this is Deborah. You have an active liaison that you never responded to from MEF on a new service attributes or something they were defining. So you could use this opportunity to respond and also say that you're doing this work.
Okay, I recall. Maybe we got the liaison before the last, before the last
I
IETF
reminded
meeting.
you
Yeah,
one or two
we forgot to reply.
But I
Yeah.
agree, Dieter, you should, you have to put it into their language, right? That even though maybe we don't do information models, but, just say how the information is that you're modeling.
That's
To
right.
make sure it's right.
I have to present UML and then Yang. No, actually,
Just simply, as they say, just say what are the service attributes that you're modeling.
that's what I did many times.
Okay, good. Okay, I didn't
but-
look at it.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have one comment? No. Okay. Okay. This is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy from Huawei. Today, I'm going to present for the draft a young data model for microwave topology. Okay, so first of all, we have did a very good plug test under the HC MWT. It's ISG. So it's in general, at the end of the general. And we test actually several IETF models were used in this plug test. And the most important one, I think, is this draft. We test on the microwave topology. And as you could say, there are several operators and vendors joining in this event. Together, there are 7 vendors. So that's represent of the almost 90% of the market. So it's a very good interoperability test at the northbound of the SDN controller. And you could say that we used domain controller for each vendors, and we test at the northbound with Postman scripts. And we test many test cases about the topology discovery and also Ethernet service provisioning. So in general, this test is very successful, and it is further planned. There will be a second plug test, and I think maybe at the end of this year or the beginning of the next year. And there's 2 links. If you are interested, you could visit those links to get more details about this plug test. So back to our draft. This draft was adopted in the February. It's after the plug test. And then in March, we updated the draft with 01 for the following changes. The first one is regarding the microwave bandwidth. In the 00 version, those attributes were defined under the T-link attributes. But after discussion, and then we decided to move it together to the location where the T bandwidth is located. So if you could say that the red rectangles in below just shows a part of the examples where we defined the microwave bandwidth in the right in the current version, and then the right part which shows the definitions of the microwave bandwidth if you're interested in. And the second change is that we introduced a microwave channel list, because in the microwave topology, we usually have multiple links, multiple radio air interface, which will be combined to provide, for example, even bigger bandwidth. And with this list, we could have multiple microwave channels under the same list, and with different frequency, and maybe also with different bandwidth. They may have each separate different attributes for each microwave channels. So talking into the details is that why we are doing this to the microwave bandwidth, because this is also following the guidance from the T topology draft, and also because of another reason that in T topologies, T bandwidth is defining as a grouping, but unfortunately the grouping is now cannot be augmented. So we have to define our own grouping and put it where each T bandwidth is used in the T topology model. So that makes the draft looks quite long, but it's actually, we have to follow this. And then the second thing is to trying to introduce how we are defining this microwave bandwidth. So this is defined for the microwave nominal bandwidth, which is the I think is the highest throughput of the link. And the how to calculation the bandwidth could be implementation specific things. So here I list 3 simple examples. The first one is that if there's only one channel in the microwave links, in the microwave channel list, then in such a case, this microwave bandwidth will be directly equal to the microwave channel nominal bandwidth. And the second example is that if we have multiple channels, 2 channels in the channel list, and both of them could be used to provide the service provisioning, then in such case, the bandwidth will be the sum of each channel nominal bandwidth. And the third case is that if there are 2 channels, but these 2 channels are protected against each other, then the bandwidth will be just one of the bandwidths. And here is talking about the channel list, because the channels may have the same frequency, so we cannot just use the frequency as the index of the list. So we put both frequency and the channel ID together with the list. Someone may ask, why do you not directly use the channel ID as the single index? We have discussed this before, but the idea is that the channel ID is just a number. It cannot provide you a very direct impression of what is exactly about this channel. So we decided to put both frequency and ID together as the index. And with this list introduced, we take out the terminal concept from the draft. Therefore, for the Ethernet link, which is the common client services for microwave, then for the Ethernet link, we could use a microwave link to be supported to that Ethernet link. And then under that, if we have multiple microwave channels, that will be a being group of the microwave channel list. And here's a open issue, and we're discussing among the authors, should we provide more information to say how to map the microwave specific attributes to relevant use case? I think this is kind of a applicability issue of how to use the module. So we will further look into this. And finally, of course, we have to do some enhancement of the module. And also that's similar to Young's comment that our authors would also like to thanks for Tom Patch's comments, which is really useful for us. So we completed the reference sections, and also within the Young module, we add more, make it more complete, including the copyright statements and more clarification, and also some editorial changes in the sections. Okay, the next step, certainly we will fix the open issue, and as I mentioned, one of them before is that should we do some applicability test to say how to use this Young module, how to use these attributes. And another thing is that we want to do further enhancement to go towards the descriptions in the Young module, for example, on the microwave bandwidth and unrisk bandwidth. Okay, that's our current idea, and we are welcome to continue review and provide some further comments. Okay, thank you.
Questions? Thanks a lot.
This is Hao speaking, and I'm presenting the Young models for transport client signals. And there has been a couple of updates started from the previous meeting. We worked both on the draft itself and also on the modules. So considering the draft, we are having more co-authors, and on the text, we are having now more sections and text describing the necessity and the usage of these models. And we also, respond somehow to Mr. Patch's comments on the prefix and INA consideration. That's all the changes on the text. And we also did some technical change on both of the models. Actually, this draft include both Ethernet service model and the transparent client signal model. So currently we have more revisions on the Ethernet service model by constructing multiple levels of resilience and like the instance, the endpoint, and the access level. And we also add information for pseudo-wire configuration as well. Meanwhile, we also restructure the PM config performance monitoring and state monitoring to make it more easier to operate. So this is what we newly added as a text for the necessity and the usage of the proposed model. So if we look into the full picture of the service, we can find this. It is composed by CE port and the PE port, and also together with some P nodes in between. But unfortunately, if we fit this into a kind of controller hierarchy like ACTN, so the different nodes are configured by different controllers, and we were just aware that there is no certain controllers that have the global view of everything. So if we look into the CNC is usually responsible for the configuration of the CEs, and on the perspective of CNC, the wheel is only a connection between CE1 and CE2 in this example. And the PNC, who is taking care of the configuration for P nodes, actually they have only the knowledge about their own domain. So PNC1 takes care of this part, and PNC2 takes care of this part. And in the middle, we have the MDSC for the coordination, but unfortunately, we still don't have the full set of knowledge because something in the middle is abstract during the report for the topology. So the view on the MDSC would be a little bit larger than both PNC and CNC, but still not a complete view. And moreover, the CE part is not configurable on the MDSC side. So if we still need to decompose the configuration into two interfaces separately. And what we have been done so far is we already have this kind of TE models to help us to set up the tunnel between the PE nodes. And what is missing so far, marked as red here, is the CE to PE session and need to be taken care of the proposed model in this draft. So the modules can be used to adapt both the transparent signals and the Ethernet clients onto the existing TE tunnels. So we, as a follow-up, we need to do the configuration on the MPI. But if we break the MPI into a single domain case or a single MPI case, what we can have, the common section between the MDSC and PNC1 is only the one between the PE1 and P2. So as said in the previous slides, this part, the green part, is configured by the tunnel model. And only this access link here, access to the P1, is done for by the proposed model to take care of the transparent and the Ethernet client. So here we just introduce how this model is used and how it coordinates with other models in the existing IETF documents. And then we would like to present something about consideration on the future work, especially for the resilience part of the Ethernet. And in this picture, we give a kind of typical view of how the CE and PE are really connected in the deployment. And the left bottom corner is a kind of hierarchy that we have on the Young tree. So by constructing this kind of Ethernet service, so we are introducing this kind of instance endpoints and access points on the different levels. So actually, from the CE to CE, actually we are constructing the Ethernet instance, and we have the placeholder for the resilience so far on each levels 1, 2, and 3. But this kind of resilience will be done by different kind of switching from either CE or P or CNP together. So And next, we will present what is corresponding action for the different layer of resilience. So if we consider the 1+1 as an example, and here when we talk about the CE switching, it means, okay, CNC is taking care of this kind of resilience configuration, and CNC itself can create a C1 to C2 connection using 1+1 connection, and MDSC will accordingly create 2 separate tunnels for working and protection as well. So when there is a failure in the middle, let's assume just the failure of the tunnel, then the CE will be aware of that and switch to the different backup tunnels. So this is for the resilience on CE switching. And this part.
So yeah, can I have one comment? So I think maybe some people will be confused by the terminology switching here. So switching here, do you mean that this is kind of protection switching?
Yes.
Than, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for
okay.
adding this. This is the switching between the working path and the protection path. And here is actually most typically deployment which which satisfies the carrier Ethernet and a kind of coordinated switching between the CE and PE as well. So usually the customer do not have quite sufficient knowledge on the network. So he understands the SLA requirement to request 1+1, but need to rely on the MDSC to do the detailed configuration. And MDSC, unfortunately, he cannot configure the C itself, so a kind of endpoint is introduced to do the logical job, and the fully duplicate configuration can be done on both working and protection paths. And in this case, when there is a failure detected on the path, actually the C and P need to be switched accordingly together. And we have this kind of endpoint session is consistent with the MEF 7.3, and we assume the kind of dual homing deployment is quite popular for carriers. And finally, it would be a kind of resilience with PE switching only, and actually this is fully taken care by the MDSC, and we only have a single access to the CE, and all the protection would be on the tunnels. And besides the resilience introduced, we also introduced the pseudo-wire configuration as the underlying tunnel options, and we have brought just a group of parameters that used to configure the pseudo-wire, and it will allow the proposed model to be applied on any tunnel, such as MPLS TP with this pseudo-wire information. So we would have to summary it. The work is currently in good consistency with existing models like the topology and the tunnel models. And this proposed model is also tested in the ETSI microwave plug test mentioned by Amy in previous presentation. We have also good running code experience with implementations deployed among the vendors and the carriers. So they just became a part of this work. So we would like to ask for working group adoption, and then future for further tweak on the details of the resilience and performance monitoring. Yeah, questions?
Loa Anderson. First, a confession. I haven't read the document. Can I have a question on the terminology anyway? Okay, can you go to the first page?
This one?
First, very first, yeah. You call this, no, the document name.
Oh.
So you say that gang model was transport client signals. Is this transport network clients, or is there a difference between transport clients and transport network clients?
Actually, this is a very good question.
Yeah. Yeah, basically we started from transport network, but in the
no, please.
Yeah, in the current we just find to have this kind of client signal to be applicable to every possible tunnels, including transparent, transport, and maybe say, are you referring to MPRSTP?
Not necessarily. Transport might be different. That's why but it's a transport network that is different. So that's the clients in those network that should be named correct. But I don't go into process. You can just check it and see if you want to change or not. It's fine with me either way.
Yeah. Okay. So this has originally be extended from OTN to transport, and now anything.
Okay, can you go, I think it was page 3 or so, where you had this abstraction model. Yeah, maybe another click. I think it was animated. Yeah.
Okay.
No?
Or next one?
Next one, that one, yeah. So I was wondering about that kind of abstraction, because I understood from the previous presentation from Italo that the target of the transport abstraction is to do a kind of a single box transport network. Well, this is a kind of let's say complete view. So what have you checked with Igor?
I think this is consistent, but what in Italo's draft, I'm also cause we raise an example. We raise an example for, say, example no abstraction, and there is potential possibility saying that we can abstract this middle things. So P1 is not clear.
Yeah, what I would like to just suggest, if you go in this kind of abstraction, think about what exactly you want to abstract, because with that abstraction you can remove the PNC 1 and 2 controllers without any loss of abstraction. So what exactly is it that you're doing? So that would probably need to be spelled out.
But probably this is irrelevant, because focusing on the access link between a C1 and P1. So whether from P1 to P2 you have a link or a hierarchy of controllers, doesn't really matter, right?
It's right, but then it basically means you don't need to describe a hierarchy of controller, because the information is already there in your MSDC. So if you would pull down the MSDC, just connect it to the clouds, and you get the same information. There's no abstraction.
Right.
So why do I need those controllers then? I mean, it's an architectural thing.
They are there for other reasons.
Which is fine, but I think from a description, let's say IETF protocol perspective, there should be no difference.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Just indicating that P1 may need when you configure the tunnel, but for this part, P1 is not needed.
Yeah, my name is Michael Scharf, and in this specific case, I'm speaking as a member of the Transport Area Review team, and I'm probably the only one here in the room. So please be careful with the term transport. As a transport network is well understood, but transport is very ambiguous in the IETF. And I can promise you that if a draft that uses the word transport hits the last call, and if I'm the last call reviewer, you will end up in fun. And you can ask the people in .NET who had they had to go through that painful exercise. So please be careful with the term transport, and transport network is fine. So we all understand that.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll work on that to guarantee that there is no confusion caused by the transport term.
Yeah, Dieter Nokia again. I was also trying to comment the title of the document and also the name of the document. I think my understanding of the draft is that it addresses how client signals are actually mapped to transport network tunnels. And that means that you need to define in that Yang model the capabilities of the adaptation function at the boundary of the network. So in the PE, how the client signals are actually mapped and adapted to a tunnel. Is that correct? I mean, if that's the case, then I think that should be reflected in the title and in the name of the document.
Okay, that is the truth. And the client-facing capability actually currently is a part of topology model. So
also,
but that information is helpful to the controllers to understanding what kind of client signal can be adapted to the right PE.
Okay, thanks. Let's make a quick polling. So given for granted all the issues on terminology that might be that we might face. How many people believe that we should work on this topic? Almost everyone. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
This is the only approach we have. Okay, you're right. Let's take a second poll. Given that almost everyone in the working group believes that we should work on this topic, how many think that this is the right approach? This is the right starting point? More or less the same. Thanks. Next one is Young. No, sorry to disturb you.
I think this is a new draft. Basically, there are topology models for optical impairment aware networks. As you see, we have many interest parties, and we have been having weekly calls for the last couple of months, I think. And we have many vendors and operators very interested in this model. So hopefully I present a meaningful way on behalf of other contributors and authors. Yeah, basically this one is to collect state of WSUN, SSUN impairment data from a controller to enable impairment-aware optical paths on an end-to-end level. This is based on ACTN architecture, and we also built this one based on GMPLS work that we have done in the past for both WSUN and SSUN. And this document basically augments generic T topology and make use of layer 0 types as an input for common groupings. And there are another draft, Darini draft, which is being polled, which will be accepted, I think. There are some scoping issues discussed in the list. This one is a little bit larger scope than interface model Darini draft addresses. So I'll get to that. It's complementary. It's not contradictory, but complementary. Okay. I forgot what is the reference for. Yeah, G.872. Yeah, G.872 define RODEM and RODEM functions along with OTS media links and OMS media links. So we take this definition as much as we can, try to model RODEM and optical amplifiers. This diamond is optical amplifier of different kinds. As you see, between two optical amplifiers is called OTS media link in a nutshell. But if you look at the picture below, this is actually RODEM box from box perspective. This amplifier, which is called a booster, which is part of node, but as you see, OMS links start from the filter before this booster amplifier to another filter on the other side. I mean, roughly, yeah. And we have a better picture next. So they define that as an OMS media link, okay? So this is our reference architecture. we have ROADM node and another ROADM node the other end. And we have preamp, and then this is a filter. We have transponder as an access add drop, and another filter, and then we have boost amplifier, which is regarded as part of ROADM node, connected through Fire, another inline amplifier ILA, and maybe another ILA depending on the distance, and then this is a preamp, which is part of the other ROADM node. So we define this fiber link between amplifiers of different kinds, OTS basically, and then from this filter coming to this boost amplifier to the other filter is roughly OMS. I don't know whether, I mean, Dieter's frowning at these pictures. I don't know whether that's approval or disapproval, but this is what we have agreed, I thought, no?
Yeah, Dieter, just a minor comment. I think we should not talk about the filter. I mean, there could be a filter in that multiplexing function, but it's,
here, yeah.
Yeah, but well, that's the input of the egress or booster amplifier.
Right.
Yeah, but you're always talking about filter functions. Filter functions.
No. Filter is not part of it. It's after
yeah, but it's
filter.
also not this block is not a filter. It's an aggregator. Whether there
It
are
could be
filters,
something else,
well, there
right.
are filters in that component or not is something that's
Okay.
irrelevant. I mean, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, but my point is OMS is starting from this boost amplifier to another one
That's
here,
correct.
right? Yeah.
This Igor, I wanted to ask you a clarification question.
Yeah.
So basically, transponder, I see it's one of the components of this picture, right? So
Yeah.
you're saying it's a draw part of a ROADM, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what about transponder which is separated from the ROADM? For example, transponder which is sitting on a router. So how this plays into this picture? Okay. Can you consider transponder-less ROADMs and separate transponder? Can you consider integration between transponders and ROADMs?
Let me say up front, actually, we augment TTP of T node to describe transponders. So I believe we assume this transponder is kind of part of access transponder. I mean, that's the model. Model actually described that way. So if you have transponder outside of this ROADM, maybe, I don't know how to model that actually. Right.
That's a good question, right?
Right.
So the other thing is with respect to telemetry. Okay, so if I'm interested telemetry of the ROADM, so using your model, I will get optical impairment specific information, or I would get a wider.
No, actually, within this node, we don't describe any impairment. That's actually outside of the scope.
So why do you call this document as optical impairment?
I would like to comment on this, Dieter, again. I think we mainly focused in the previous calls that we had on modeling the OMS link and the components along the OMS link, like fiber spans, like amplifiers, including the amplifiers in the ROADMs, the egress and the ingress amplifiers. We did not talk that much or specify that much the optical impairments that are imposed by the ROADM. And I think that's something that we will have to discuss and will have to address in the future.
Yes, that's correct.
And also, do you take into account add drop amplifiers? I work from Huawei.
Add drop amplifier? Not at this moment.
Right.
You mean here, around here?
You know, at each of the node between transponders and the ROADM, directionless ROADM and transponder, there's usually an add drop amplifier, right?
I don't think we have considered that, Dieter, do we? Add drop amplifier? Right.
Yeah, I think Gabriel speaking.
Right.
A drop amplifier are just a subcase of a ROADM, basically.
Subcase of?
Is a ROADM with 2 degree period.
Yeah.
And then some drop, but is like a ROADM.
I think we still have to discuss how we are going to model a ROADM and what the functional components of the ROADM should be. I mean, this is a good picture for starting the discussion, but I think we're not there yet.
We haven't got to that point.
Exactly.
Right. We focused on the link model. So that's our main presentation.
Yeah, so we probably have to define what the optical impairments are from a drop interface, whether the transponder is part of the box or whether it's outside of the box.
Correct.
We also have to discuss what the optical impairment contributions are from line to line or from degree to degree. So all these things have not been discussed yet. I think that's the future work that's still in front of us.
This correct. This again. So I still don't understand, for example, the focus of this model. Is it only about optical impairments, or to me it looks like you are trying to model ROADM in general and have like a much wider focus?
No, I think our focus here is this is not flex grid or WSUN, but our focus is on how to describe, OMS as there are many optical signal parameters that we need to capture in order to assign the right path from optical impairment perspective. So it complements the existing models, but we don't want to duplicate that. So our focus is basically optical impairment.
So let me ask you an easier question. Is it like a network-wide model? Or it's
network-wide model? Yeah, I think you have to wait a little bit on the next slide, but I think Julia may have some comment.
Generic, but I was about to say exactly the same thing as you said. We should focus first on the slides, on maybe read the draft, because this picture here is far beyond what we've been working on.
Right.
We are, as you say, as the text suggests here, focusing on the OMS parameters. Right. If the working group agrees to proceed that way, we will enlarge and support all the missing pieces like hard drop amplifiers or whatever. The idea was to focus on the OMS, agree on an approach. If we find disagreement, we will extend for sure. So
that's
I think we should leave you a bit of time to present.
Just one question. Looking at the draft, it seems that you have the topology there, including all the things that you want to model there. And question is, okay, or the important thing, I think that all the value of this draft is precisely in the modeling of the OMS. So why don't you, skip, I don't care about topology, it's already in the other drafts. I mean, the other drafts do care about topology, so just here focus on the extensions of the links or whatever. So, and even transponder, you can remove it here. I mean, because here I think what you are really want to describe here is, for any kind of signal that enters into the signal, let's say optical signal coming from a transponder, you want to...
I think you need to talk to Victor, your company.
No, but...
The requirement came from him. Now you are saying otherwise.
No. Maybe I was not aligned here with... I think you see the draft is
fun. Each company people disagree, right? I disagree with Hamian and Fatah has comment. Very much fun.
It is just looking at all the draft, the IETF draft, that we are not duplicating.
No, we're not duplicating. That's the last thing we would do. But we begin with OMS, but I don't think that's it. We need to kind of model transponder and the behavior.
No, just saying that you need to incorporate that into, or you need to augment later the WSUN model or the Flexi model with the impairments. So it's like an augmentation. I think it seems to be logic from my point of view.
Can we let the Yang finish the presentation?
Okay. Yes, I don't think for the sake of time, I wouldn't go through this Yang model, but I think as you see, OMS attribute, that's the main thing of this draft. And why don't you read it? Probably you wouldn't understand unless you want to come to the call and then let Jean-Luc, explain this link model. This is a kind of transponder model. I think we discussed in the mailing list. We basically have 3 modes of operation allowed, which is G-dot, 692.2, which is application code. And or some other organization may want to define their own organization code. We support that. And also explicit mode, without any code. If you want to list facts and modulations and so on, you can do that. We haven't come up with layer 0 type to fully specify all the fact types and so on, but we have a base model and so on. Yes, I think this is actually, we are talking about, Darini model, which is an interface model, which is basically describing this interface. And our model basically talking about transponder and this OLS segment and this transponder. And the transponder's mapping to modulation and fact or application code. So this is a network model, basically. So that's complementary to Darini model. So currently, this is the, Yeah, we basically import network topology to T topology, and we import that and augment as well, and layer 0 type to import. And Darini model have only interface RFC A343, which is base interface Yang model. They import and augment. Layer 0 types, they don't actually have any relationship, but I think there might be some parameters that could be could be referred to this layer 0 type if Darini and authors are willing to move some of the parameters into this type rather than define within this exponder DWDM interface model. So that's some details to we discuss this tomorrow, and yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to mention that we're certainly going to discuss and see how we can get this matched.
Right.
So this is indeed just the Darini one is just really an interface model.
Yeah.
And it should be treated as such. It's a simple thing that can be augmented for whatever next.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we have presented last meeting. Because now, since then, we made a big progress, and a lot of people seems to be interested. So we would like to request for working group adoption for this IETF and work on consistency with Darini draft and enhance OMS link model. And actually, one thing that we started, the OTSG relationship with network media channel group. We just started, which is kind of transponder model, basically. I mean, part of transponder model. That's why I think this is important aspects. And we plan to have 2 offline sessions tomorrow, 9 to 11 and 4 to 6. Sergio, do you have any room? We do? Second one, which room? Paris, okay. So 4 to 6 Paris, and morning one, if we know, we'll send to the list. Okay.
Yeah, one last question. So in the picture, you basically say this OMS, this optical impairment is augmented onto a T-link, right?
Yeah.
And you said T-link, you show the T-link is between ROADM to ROADM.
Right.
So what if I define a T-link as, as like I do a T-link for each OTS? Does it work?
I think we need to have augmentation model for that, which T-Link doesn't cover today, right?
Right, because
Right.
past implementation, from different companies,
Yeah.
they just basically do T-Link for each
Right.
OTS link.
That's right. I think that's something your contribution will be appreciated.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll take Julian's question, and then we need to move on.
Julien Loic, actually, I was trying to answer. I heard Dieter also. We had this kind of discussion before, roughly assuming we align OMS and T-Link, which isn't fully accurate. An OTS is just an OMS that ends on an amplifier instead of a ROADM. So if you want to consider your amplifier as ROADM, then you may build T-Link per OTS, and you're roughly done. I'm summarizing, but there is no contradiction there.
Yes. I think your use case as an operator, that, we need that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, what I need is the link parameters describing the optical impairments.
Right.
Whether then the amplifier is modeled as a full node or just intermediate piece of the OMS is just details. But
okay.
what's interesting here is the optical parameters, and I use the working group to look at this and send a feedback.
Okay.
Let's move.
It's important
What
difference.
did I say about cutting the line after
Yes,
Julian?
yes. We ignore it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Ego. Ignore ego or ego?
Yes. So it is important difference whether you consider amplifier as part of a link or part of the ROADM, right? So I always thought that amplifiers, there's like a post and pre-amplifiers, which parts of the link actually in the optical layer. And ROADM is just cross-connect.
I think we are fully agreeing on that. We had the discussion too. We really want to associate booster on preamp as part of the OMS, align them or glue them to the link parameters. So we are agreeing there.
Okay. We will discuss it. It doesn't work. It works. Doesn't work from here now.
Good morning, everyone. This is Chile.
I'll move the slides for you. Just tell me next slide.
Okay. Today I'm going to present the two drafts. The first one is the analysis for FLEXI control model, and next one is a young model for FLEXI. Okay, thank you. For the introduction, this presentation will just try to derive what can we do with the FLEXI, with control method to control FLEXI according to a detailed encapsulation process described in RTOT document. The first draft is about the young model, which were presented during the Bangkok meeting, and some changes are listed here. It's a reference, some RTOT document, and a restructured job. A second draft is about the analysis, which is used to help understand the model. Next. Okay, for this slide, we just want to give a general description of the control requirement. What can we do to FLEXI? We think FLEXI is just an interface technology. So what we believe is only some initial configuration is needed for this interface. Once the FLEXI interface is enabled, I think there's no difference from traditional in Ethernet. You can use it. So based on this, we think that the initial configuration for group and client should be provided first. So next, sorry. Okay, yeah, this is a network scenario. I just give some, use some small finger here to show the internal structure of the router. So next, I just use it as a base to explain what can we do. The first one for the FLEXI group configuration. I think here the task that we need is to bind the several files together and insert some section monitoring overhead. That's according to the description in RTOT document. So next. Okay, thank you.
Let's go to presentation mode and it blocks everything.
Yeah. So this slide is about the FLEXI client configuration. It's about some analysis. According to the description in RTOT 3.23, there is no overhead defined for monitoring a Flexi client. So the trail concept for Flexi client does not exist. The Flexi client trail termination point, we think it's a non-function. So based on this, we think modeling Flexi client as a network layer may not be right. So next. And also I copy this figure from RTOT 3.23. It's about the mapping of Flexi client over the group. We can see from the figure that the external input included in this figure, it's just some calendar configuration. It's about TXCC, TXCCA, and CCB. It's about the Flexi calendar number and type A or type B calendar configuration. And the group number, file number, and so on. Another thing that I should notice that is a multiplexer function. According to the description that in RTOT document, this function can perform the action of assigning individual Flexi calendar to specific calendar slots of Flexi group. That means that there is no need to intervene this slot allocation process with the external tools. Then no need to do that. So next. And for this, we just based on the discussion, I think maybe in the middle list offline discussion, we just added this one. It's about the transforming MAC into Flexi calendar. This process is involved. It's about the transencode. It's about to transencode the MAC frame into the 64-66 block. So the behavior here performed is finished in the Flexi calendar internal port automatically. So also we think it's if this behavior can be finished automatically, there's no need to intervene this process with external tools. So next. Yeah, so based on the previous analysis, we just give a Flexi configuration model which includes two parts. The first part is a group which includes some configuration information for this group. It's about the group number, file information, and the mapping between logical file and physical interface and Flexi instance. One thing that we are not sure, I just listed here, we are not sure is whether Flexi instance should be included in this model at 200 gig and 400 gig. We think the way of distributing instance number is fixed even for the unequipped case. And for the Flexi calendar, we think the initial configuration for Flexi calendar includes the calendar number and the mapping calendar number to a specific internal calendar interface, and the association of those Flexi calendar to the Flexi group. So next. Thank you. Okay, for this thing that I think we should be sorry about this. We forgot to put this part in the model, how to deal with a where case. According to some discussion, we think the cross of the Flexi group signal is actually done at its file level. The end-to-end file connection should be constructed first. For example, in this figure, it includes 3 different segments, and this end-to-end file connection, we think it should be constructed first before configuring the group. Currently, there is I've seen IETF in CCAMP, that is IETF 6002. It defines the switch type, DCIC, to describe the switching of a whole digital channel, a single channel interface. We think 5 in this scope. So we just recommend a new switch type that DCIC is Flexi to deal with the aware case. It's because for the unavailable slots that usually, according to this definition in the data plan, these slots are usually placed at the end of each relevant subcalendar. So we think we can use bandwidth information to describe the band. Sorry, we can use the bandwidth information to indicate the unavailable slots, the number of the unavailable slots. So we just augment the current T hop to include the bandwidth attribute in that to deal with the aware case configuration. So next. Okay, so other issue. We also take a look at other FlexE related document in CCAMP. We just want to discuss about this, whether the interface for FlexE group or FlexE client need to be redefined to augment the current standard interface. After discussing, we think that maybe for FlexE group, there is no need to define to augment the current standard interface to expose it because it's just an internal interface. We can use FlexE group ID to associate the FlexE client with it. And for FlexE client interface, we think it's just a MAC-based flow, or maybe reuse of Ethernet interface is fine. So next. Okay, I'll just add this slide to help clarify how can some up layer to use FlexE. We think once the group and client, once this interface is enabled, the resources can be sent by the MPS layer, which is also an example, is for separate MPS switching capable ports. It's to 25 gig ports and 100 gig port, sorry, 50 gig ports and 100 gig ports. For MPS layer, it's not aware of the existence of FlexE. It's just use it as traditional Ethernet and not different. Okay, next. So, okay, conclusion. We have talked about this just in the first slide. It's just an interface technology. We think only some initial configuration for the group and client is needed. And once this interface is enabled, we can use it as traditional Ethernet. There's no need to involve any dynamic protocol in. Okay, next. Okay, next step, we just want to invite more people who are interested in this to join this work and keep updating this draft. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. One quick question. What is the relationship between the framework document and the control analysis document?
Chris, answer is we don't know yet. we will probably find out. I don't think it's a problem really. I would just say one thing first, and that is I actually requested a slot for the framework, but I didn't get anyone.
It wasn't on the tool when I did the...
Okay, that's... Okay. Can you go back one slide? That's the same one. Next one. Yeah, this conclusion says that you can use it as any Ethernet interface. Is that true even if there are different TE parameters for FlexE?
For FlexE?
If the TE parameters for Ethernet and FlexE are not the same, can you use this just the same anyway?
Yeah, I think it's the same.
So if you have one thing that you can do certain things, you can't do it in the other. You can do it the same way. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, let me make some examples. Yeah, I have already answered that.
I mean, first you have to identify what those TE attributes are, but you were thinking to go for a new switching interface, right? So that would allow you, you're going to define a FlexE switching interface?
No.
Go back a couple of slides.
Yep.
Which is okay, it's just the link, right? And then you could define different TE if it is needed, Here, you're going to define a new switching type?
Yeah.
Right? And then you could define different TE. Yeah.
So it's not the same.
Well, we don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. It's outside.
In the framework, we discussed the TE parameters.
I didn't see it, but anyway, you'll get that lower. That'll be there. I think what I found for the framework document, which was different, was that it's discussing a multi-layer control plane. But then I wasn't sure because you said that the interoperation between the GMPLS control plane and the control plane of the clients was not the same. So I was wondering, is it a GMPLS control plane or are you going to interwork different MPLS control plane, TE and GMPLS control plane. So that, as you say, there's lots
Yes.
of documents to define that,
Yeah,
how
I just
the interaction.
don't want to involve GRNTS.
Yeah. And so then in that, I was thinking how you define that, depending how you define it, it's very similar then to the client document, especially for Yang, right? That
Yeah.
in the Yang node document, you stuck to scoping it to just the layer of the FlexC. You did not talk about multi-layer.
I'm not talking about.
Yeah.
that.
So then it's separate.
It's separate.
Yeah. But as soon as you would discuss MPLS clients, you know,
Yeah.
then it would be similar. And so then the only thing that I came up with that was very confusing, actually, that description of how the control planes interact, and that your requirement 9, you have that the FlexE control plane should support establishment of MPLS LSPs, but it would be the reverse, right? It's the MPLS control plane would need to be where, right? Like if you would use 4206 or something, you would do forward adjacencies and virtual TE links and
Yeah, it's about diversity.
yeah. So it would be so it's the framework document is just a little bit confusing that what you're trying to say. And so it'd be good to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yuan Longjiang from Huawei. I have two questions. With regard to your conclusion slide, you said FlexE is a interface technology, but in your model, I didn't see anything. Since your model this FlexE groups as a whole. So what's the relationship between this module with interface, or how to use this module in your mind?
Actually, we just think that we construct the FlexE, configure the FlexE first, and then interface can be seen, but later. So
how? Usually, you need to have a device, or you need to have a interface, or maybe you just configure a network. I don't know what you're trying to configure at first. Since a Flex group is just a link to link. It's just you need to configure a device first, maybe.
Yeah, compare support maybe.
I know in the I
So
think
I think we can count because you have another draft on this topic, so maybe we can discuss more later.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
If
We can.
if you continue the discussion on the mailing list, that would be great.
Right. Sure.
Please.
Yuan Longjiang from Huawei. Good morning, everyone. This is another module for the FlexE, but it's about the interface management. We have two the authors are from Huawei and China Mobile. The background, I think people, all of you have be aware of it. It's defined by the OIF. Currently, it's widely used in the DC interconnection, and we hope wider applications can be foreseen in the future. Please. Yeah, please. Thank you. The requirement on the FlexE interface management, we believe we need to configure the FlexE group and how to binding multiple FlexE files. And in each file, we have multiple instances, especially for the 200G and 400G. Also, we need to support the slot configuration for each slot in the instance. Furthermore, we need to support the applications in SDN or some distributed routing protocols such as ETH or OTP. Certainly, we need to support the remote configuration, such as using the REST-conf to configure the interface and the retrieval of the FlexER status, such as some faults on the link locally or remotely. And finally, it should be backwards compatible with the FlexER 1 and also support the current FlexER 2. Thanks. This slide showing the inheritance hierarchy of this interface. This should be based on the IETF interface. So we can just manage it as a normal network interface. So we just augmented to the IETF interface. Next, please. Thanks. This is the tree diagram of this YANG module. As you can see, each FlexE group is just a network interface. And in this interface, we have multiple just file list. In the file list, we have some instances. For each instance, we have some slots which can be configurable for any clients. In parallel to this FlexE group, that's a client list. For this client list, for each client, we can configure any slots this client can use, and which FlexE group, which file number, and which instance number. So it's totally be configurable. And finally, the FlexER status. So was anything wrong in the link? That's all. So basically, this document added to the IETF interface with the capability of FlexER configuration, just as defined in the OIF. And this model is configured. It's compatible with the YANG 1.1 version, and they use the paradigm of NMDA. This hierarchy architecture supports the logic of the FlexER group file and instance. So it's consistent with the OIF. This is a rather simple document and very straightforward. So we'd like to request for work group reviews and maybe adoption.
What's the relationship with the YANG model that we have just seen?
I think it's independent. It's just for interface management, but I'm not sure what that YANG module is talking about.
Okay, Chile, I think the main difference between these two draft dates, for this draft date, try to allocate the slot to the client. So for our draft, we think it can be performed by the equipment itself. We don't need to do that.
So draft, it's for the interface model.
Yeah.
What is your model for your draft?
It's also interface model.
So they are just at the same topic, right?
Yeah, same topic. But different behavior involved.
Okay, so please either consider progressing to different documents with a very clear and defined scope with no overlap between the two drafts, or possibly merge the two drafts and work together to cover all the aspects that are needed. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
So I have a more general comment on FlexE. So FlexE is a new topic in CCAMP. Usually, we could start from framework, or we could just directly into the solution draft. So either way, it's okay. But anyway, we should decide if we still need to continue on the framework or just kill framework document, right?
No, continue.
Continue on.
And as you know, just because you have a document, like the framework document, doesn't mean you have to publish the document. That's what the ISG is saying right now. So it can help you, but you don't actually have to publish it unless you see that it has long-term value forever and ever.
Correct.
But I think what's important here is that that it seems to be a technical interpretation, so they have to work out what that interpretation is. So and I agree too that you should try to merge and just figure out the technical part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. My personal opinion for the framework is about the control framework. So it's a little larger compared with this module.
The framework document is interesting in that it's showing a router and having the interfaces, and so it's not necessarily a framework specifically on FlexC. It's a multi-layer. It could be the informational document, on how you're doing a router with FlexC.
Okay,
Yeah,
very quickly, please, because we still have another presentation.
John Messenger. The real question behind these different approaches is whether FlexC is intended to become a layer network and to invent an entire new switching hierarchy at the FlexC level. This is the substance of the debate that needs to be sorted out. Certainly the views that's an active debate inside ITUT right now. I think that IEEE 802 has made its position on FlexC pretty clear, and that there are different camps in the industry, but a lot of the traditional enterprise manufacturers seem to be coming down on the side that they don't need another new layer network to manage. Thank you.
So I would like to comment. FlexC is a kind of interface technology which is not switchable, and it's different from SPN called in ITUT. They are two different technologies actually.
Yeah, so it's just cover with interface itself. It has nothing to do with any switching.
So, Lou Anderson again. What Fatah said is actually the starting point we took in the framework. FlexC is not switching, it's interface. And then we build two layers of FlexC clients and FlexC group. On top of that, as an example, we're using what happens when you want to set up an MPLS LSP over that type of network. That's all we do. Yeah. And then a question for Deborah. On publishing and not publishing, it would be interesting if we someone could get an understanding of what actually ISG means with value for the future. What criteria are you using to actually decide that? I have document where I go back and find them useful 10 years later, but today they would never been published. They would just disappeared.
Well, on that note, Laura, what they're saying from the ISG is you cannot publish, but you can also put it in a. Am I on? You can put the requirements or these example use cases in an appendix of the document. So they're talking about how to. But we will discuss that later, and so that's it. I think what actually though to quickly, since we have John here. The idea that you can, at the device level, choose your slots depending on what the Yang configured it to do, I don't think that's supported by any of the hardware in the physical network. So your idea that you can send a Yang configuration command down and say, I want you to use slots 1, 3, 5, that's not there. The model of ITU is it's just like a round robin. It's just grabbing stuff, and it's able to tell the other side which one it's used. That they have a protocol in there to tell each side what slots they used. So you don't have to do it with the Yang. So anyway, so that's, you guys can work it out later. But that's
yeah, it's some details we can discuss offline.
Okay. Last one, please.
I think I have -5 minutes, right? Okay.
Take your time.
No, let's go down. Again. This one. No. No, just a couple of minutes. Number one, I was very happy to about the discussion we got last month, and we are having this week because I see quite a good conversions into the flex spectrum definition, in particular about the OTSI and the OTSI group that can be in some way binded to the network media channel group. That means that all of us are starting understanding the importance to complete the work that has been done some times ago on the flex spectrum. Number two, and I think this week we'll go further beyond in this definition and try to understand how to, let's say, coordinate the different activities we have. Different activities that are not only impairment validation, impairment info, impairment encode, but there are also impairment parameters that impairment models that is a matter of this draft. Second point I want to underline, in the young models, in the Yan-Li draft. So we discuss quite a lot about how the OTSI will be defined and models. We have 3 proposals over there, and this proposal, in my opinion, should be submitted to ITUT in order to be blessed or ask to ITUT to have a fourth solution. But really, we need to close this point.
Okay.
That's it.
Are you planning to write the text for a liaison?
I think we want to write a test for liaison because we know very well what we have discussed, and then it's just a matter to write down the text.
Just send it to the list that we can all review and
Actually, in the
fix it.
draft, there is already some text that can be cut and paste and let's see for the respect.
That's a good way forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Do we really need to send a liaison, or it's much better as that the company is working on it, write a contribution to ITUT? Because I think
I cannot force you to write a contribution in ITUT.
No, yeah, but it's people is interested to solve the problem because we have to control a data plane and we have some missing information in the data plane spec from ITUT. Why we don't go and just write a contribution to ITUT rather than coming here, writing a liaison and wait the others to start the work for us?
I think we can do both. No, send the liaison.
Send
On the
liaison
other
with the
side,
questions and-
on the
yeah,
other
okay.
side, offer our help to ITUT in order to close this issue.
You do the cross and you shoot on your own.
Okay, that's all. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Gabriele. Thanks everyone. And let's see what is next. Montreal.
Montreal, yeah. See you in Montreal.
Thank you.
Yeah.